our mom today. With particular heartfelt thanks to Ken Novikowski, who has really spearheaded the recognition of our mom, Connie Jervis. My brother Jim, sister Barb, and I were so privileged to have Connie and Roger Winter as parents. They demonstrated their integrity, compassion, consideration for others throughout their life. Their word was a reflection of their honor. Connie and Roger Winter believed in the value of education and lifelong learning. Both of them were Langley School District educators. History and education were very important to them. I recently retired from the Langley School District, and many times after teaching on staff for a while, I would have colleagues asking me, "Are you Roger Winter's daughter?" They would always have wonderful stories about our dad. The same can be said about our mom. She began the docent program at the Langley Centennial Museum in Fort Langley. I would take my young students there at least once a year. Upon arrival, I would hear whispers in the background from museum staff and fellow docents. "That's Connie Winter's daughter." Of course, my kids really had to behave. Oh my goodness, the pressure was on. Again, they always had wonderful things to say about Mom and her contributions to the museum and its educational programs. In 1939, Langley was very much a rural community. There was a strong chauvinistic attitude. Farmers spent their money on what was important to themselves and their farm. The daily newspaper from Vancouver was too expensive for most people, so they got their community news from the local paper, the Langley Advance, which was very pro-school board and anti-teacher. The school board comprised of farmers with Mr. Berry as a school board chair. He was a forceful presence, and the board followed his authority. The alternative facts that we hear about in today's news was also present in 1939. There was no bargaining for wages, let alone working conditions. The local school board had total control over its teachers. There were no limits to class sizes. Mom had 56 students in one of her classes. On the brochure from the Labor Heritage Society, you'll see a picture of young women. That was my mom's class, or so I thought, but she took the picture, but that was the girls' side. And then there's another picture of the boys that were in her class, so lots of kids. Mom, as I said, every September, the school board would arrive en masse to every classroom to see if there was enough room for another row of desks. Our mother ensured that her space was limited by using tables that would hold science projects, as well as her own National Geographic magazines. Her students would take these magazines home for their families to read, as there was no school library. Most elementary teachers were women. These young women usually still lived at home with their parents under their father's rule. Men made $100 more than women. It was felt that men needed the money more than women, as women would just spend it on frivolous things. Once women were married, they had to resign. Our mom boarded with Mrs. Bilton, the only married woman who was allowed to teach, as her husband was very ill and unable to work. The school board did not want a married woman teaching and voiced their complaints about this. During the war, the men left their jobs to enlist, and the school board had to hire married women to ensure there was enough teachers. And of course, after the war, it was much more acceptable for married women to teach. Salaries were on an individual basis and at the whim of the school board. Teachers that had been teaching for years could receive the same salary as a newly hired teacher. Out of 50 teachers, 3 or 4 might get a raise. The LTA executive, with our mom as president, Roy Mountain as salary chair, Dorothy Peacock, who we called our Auntie Edie, as an executive member, decided to work towards an increase of teacher salaries. Most of the 50 Langley teachers were members of the BCTF with 12 non-members. The LTA executive were determined to act on behalf of all the teachers. As you know, the board refused to grant any salary increase, so the LTA executive requested arbitration, which, of course, the school board refused to participate in. The BCTF, according to our mother, was a source of great help and strength. The Federation gave much support to the Langley executive. After the teachers won the arbitration, the school board chair, Mr. Berry, made a personal trip to each teacher on the arbitration list and attempted intimidation by telling them if they wanted their arbitration award, they needed to give him a letter of resignation. Some teachers did resign. The school board continued to refuse to pay the teachers the arbitration award. Our mom, as you've heard, with 13 other teachers, were fired from the Langley School Board, and of course they appealed and won. However, the school board was still not finished with their intimidation, and the 5 main ringleaders were then given a demotion from principal to teacher, or were sent to schools that were on the outer boundaries of Langley. These 5 teachers, led by Mom, held strong in their resolve against the school board's intimidation. There were divisions amongst the teachers. Some young women, particularly those that still lived at home, were very hostile towards these 5 teachers. One young woman actually told Mom she would teach for nothing if the school board asked her. Few people could afford cars at that time, and so it was difficult for these teachers to get to their new schools. One teacher walked 3 miles to a school, then boarded a school bus to take her to a new assignment. Obviously, the board hoped that they would resign. On the first day of school in September, these 5 teachers went to their previous assignments early in the morning and sat at their desks on strike. Mom sat on strike, I'm a mother, from 8:30 until 9 o'clock or so, until Mr. Berry arrived. There was a new teacher prepared to teach in the classroom. Mr. Berry, the school board chair, arrived at Murrayville and was furious. He told Mom to get out and ordered her to County Line, which of course is on the border of Abbotsford and Langley. Mom informed Mr. Berry that she would go, but under protest. These teachers continued to act as professionals as they remained calm and quiet when they were ordered back to their new assignments. In September of 1940, the Municipal Council held a public meeting where the teachers were told they were undemocratic and unpatriotic. Tensions were very high in the community against these teachers. Much of the community felt that these uppity women were quite offensive. A rumor was spread that our mother, attacked the teacher that was supposedly going to be working in a room, ruined her dress, and blackened her eyes. Our grandfather, the local veterinarian, was asked, "Why can't you handle your daughter and make her behave?" After teaching a week in their new classroom, the school board was fired, as you've heard, by the Council of Public Instruction, and the 5 teachers were reinstated to the previous schools. Reporters and a photographer were constantly outside these teachers' classrooms. They felt nervous and apprehensive to be in the community. Mom didn't talk much about her time as the LTA president or her actions in 1939. It was until I was teaching at Murrayville that she mentioned, "You know, I taught in the next classroom she went. That's where I went on strike." There is little wonder that these 5 teachers developed a close bond and remained friends throughout their lives. In conclusion, I am amazed and in awe of a young 24-year-old woman that saw a need to improve the fairness in the system that sets salaries. She knew she was taking on her powerful employers that were leaders in her community. She demonstrated inner strength and determination against strong community outrage, vilification in the press, and the snubbing by her friends. She remained strong and determined as she went to work, attended church, and shopped in her community. However, for those of us who are so fortunate to know Connie Winter, we aren't surprised at all by her determination and courage to oppose unfair employment practices by her school board and by her inner strength and tenacity. Well done.